Good day everyone, I am Pasman and I will be discussing about index number trend series and interpretation of trends by graphing or scattergram and trend lines. Previously, the lecturer tackled about horizontal analysis as comparison of different periods by using change in percentage. And now I will be introducing to you another tool used by many analysts for an easier and more convenient analysis. By the end of this lecture, I hope that everyone would be able to define and to know how to compute index number and its significance to a financial plan. And also, to interpret trend ratios with the use of graphs and trend lines. To start, we know that the main goal of financial analysis is to assess the past performance of an entity to be able to forecast its future movements. In this lecture, we will be analyzing the financial statements of Rojas Food Venture Incorporated, which was the subject of our predecessor in their financial planning, especially its index number trend series and plotting its ratios into a graph and interpreting them. So basically, an index number is a figure of quantity compared with the base value. So first thing to do is to assign the base year in which the figure under that year will be the base value, and then apply the formula. We will have to compute for the current year divided by the base year and then multiply it by 100. And note that regardless of whether the index number is in terms of price, volume, or absolute value, the principle or the essence of index number will still remain the same, which is to exhibit simply and concisely the measured change in a variable from one period to another. And it is quite connected with the change in percentage, which was discussed by the previous lecturer, but they are not similar. However, the index number trend series is the percentage differences relative to the base value. For example, to further understand, we have here the index number of statement of financial position of the Rojas Food Venture Incorporated, and it is stated here that in the year 2012, the index number of the current assets the cash and cash equivalents is 173 in 2013. The difference of this is 27. It means that there has been a fall of 27% from the year 2012 to 2013. And when we look at the year 2014, we have 111, and compared with the base value in 2012, there has been an increase of 11% from 2012 to 2014. Moving on, let us discuss the second topic, which is interpreting trends with the use of graphs and trend lines. So, one of the very effective way of interpreting large figures is visualizing them. And scattergrams or graphs and trend lines are the common tools used in interpreting financial information. Trend lines are also of big help in forecasting the movement of the graph. Before plotting the graph, we will have to first compute for the trend ratio, having the formula of the item under the non-base year or the current year divided by the item in the base year. As an example, we have here the current ratio of the Rojas Food Venture Incorporated, and using all these figures, we will come up to this graph. And interpreting trends, it is simply to know whether there's a change that has occurred. And then the next question will be, is it increasing or decreasing? And we have to note that in interpreting trends, try not to focus on the individual points. Instead, interpret or look at the graph as a whole picture. But before we interpret this example, let us first proceed to the next step, which is determining the steepness and the flatness of the slope. It is not enough to know whether the graph is increasing or decreasing. We also have to identify the steepness and the flatness of the slope to know not only the change but the significant change in the graph. So, based on my research, many analysts use this 45 degrees as a general indicator to identify the steepness and the flatness of the slope, because 45 degrees seem to represent the balance between x and y. So it is said that if the trend line is above or is steeper than this 45 degrees, the trend line is known to be strong and is going up too quickly. And if the trend line is much shallower than this 45 degrees, the trend line is known to be flat, but it does not mean that it is unfavorable. It is still favorable because it is increasing. So I have discussed the increasing trend. Same goes with the otherwise. So going back to our example, we will now interpret the graph of the current ratio of Rojas Food Venture Incorporated. So here, we can see that the current ratio of the entity has a rising trend ratio. Although in the earlier years, it attained almost equal amounts with continuous improvements, it had a 42% increase, resulting to its most recent year's current ratio, which is 1.29. In a nutshell, index number, trend series, and interpretation of trends using graphs and trend lines is important to know or to identify the significant change in the financial ratios of an entity. That's all. Thank you.